Andy Karraker Show, and we are on STL Sports Central, presented by DraftKings Pick 6, where the crown is yours. Good to be back. Thanks to Mike Claiborne for sitting in yesterday. B-Schaeff is here, as he is every Tuesday. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Excited to talk some sports today with you, Randy.
Yeah, we'll talk some sports and such. I was at the Greg Ebley Memorial Golf Tournament yesterday at one of the great golf courses in the area, one of the difficult golf courses in the area as well. The Tavern course out at St. Albans. Fortunately, I didn't have to play the Tavern course.
Okay.
But I got a chance to play with my buddies, Craig and Butch Suntrip and Doug Mitchell from Folds of Honor. We were there representing Folds of Honor, and thanks to the Greg Ebley tournament for contributing to Folds of Honor, along with Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital, and also to Backstoppers.
There you go. So did you play or
I played and it was hot, man.
Yeah, that was I played a little bit of golf yesterday as well, but I only played 9 holes to the 18 from my group, and I felt a lot better than they did by the end of it.
Yeah, about hole 14 I was toast. But the company was great. We had a good time, and so that's why I wasn't here, and that's why we thank Mike Claiborne for sitting in. The Cardinals are winners over the Marlins 7-1. B-Schaeff, about a month, 2 months ago, I was even though I'm a broadcaster, I go in and I sit in Ollie's office for a lot of the pre-games because I just sit there and listen. But, towards the end of one of them a few months ago, I said, hey, what about the concept of giving an outfielder's glove to Herrera and to Gorman? And he said, we've actually discussed it about Herrera because he's got athletic ability, not as much Gorman, but he said that's something that after the season, we will absolutely visit with Ivan Herrera, but we want to exhaust all catching options with him.
Yeah.
Then I think when he pulled the hamstring, that kind of exhausted the catching options for them for Ivan Herrera. And talking to Katie Wu, and I don't know were you at the ballpark last night?
I was not last night. No.
People, all the media people walk in, and the lineup is posted right when you walk in. And there
it is.
There's Ivan Herrera in left field
with Burleson at DH, right? So you go,
yeah.
Well, maybe a typo. Maybe nope. That's what they wanted to do. And I don't know if there's a better sign. Like you said, initially it was off season. We'll visit that possibility, which makes sense. But with the way the Cardinals' July has gone, they're not necessarily in the race in the same way that you had hoped. We could be witnessing a sell-off in the coming days, and they're trying some stuff. They're maybe getting a jump on what that would look like in the offseason.
And I like his athleticism. The reason that I asked the question is because he can run a little bit. He obviously has the ability to catch the ball. He moves around. He was able to go get that ball last night. When you look at some of the left fielders that have won World Series, there's no reason to believe that Ivan Herrera couldn't ascend to that level athletically of being a competent enough left fielder to win with.
I'm just thinking about the 2011 team. I mean, Matt Holliday was your guy, and then Alan Craig was in there for the final out. So that'll play if you're producing at the plate. That's kind of what that position can be about. Certainly, when you have Victor Scott as well roaming center field most of the time, he has that great range that can help fit some guys in the corners. That as long as they're producing at the plate, you can get away with that.
And it's interesting and to me ironic that we could get, and I'm not positive about this. I don't think the Cardinals. I know the Cardinals don't know this yet because there's a long way to go. There's still a couple of months in this season and then spring training next year and an entire offseason. But it's not out of the realm of possibility with this incredibly left-handed heavy lineup that the Cardinals have had in 2025 that they would start 26 with a right-handed hitter in left and a right-handed hitter in Jordan Walker in right.
Yeah, that seems like a possibility, and you got to figure out a way to sort through the lefties and what you do with them. If it's Newpar, if it's Gorman, Donovan, that Scott should probably be in center field as a lefty. Yeah. But yeah, I think that could end up balancing out a little bit next year if they so choose, right? Burleson's another example of a lefty. Again, you've got 10, 11 guys that you're going to have to decide which 9 are you going to roll with for the most part. And for that extra guy, can there be a trade that maybe nets you a pitcher? Certainly that's got to be a topic of conversation after the Tekoa Roby news. And so you're trying to sort your way through what that looks like, kind of peeking ahead to February of 26.
We're getting ahead of things here. And I want to get your opinion on this. Do you think that Willson Contreras would hold enough value, and Willson is going to be 34 next May and probably wants to win again, and the Cardinals probably would like to have a younger team that grows together. Do you think that he holds enough value that another team would take on his contract as a first baseman / DH?
I do. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's one of the best hitters on the Cardinals this year.
Yep.
And that would be a reason I would hesitate to move him. Looking at the qualified players right now, I believe it's just Burleson that's ahead of him. Ivan Herrera would be ahead in OPS as well, but has not qualified for plate appearances. I see the question. I just wonder if, I think Willson A wants to stay. I know he wants to win, but he's also taken a lot of pride in being a guy that is at the center of whatever the Cardinals are going to be doing. And so I wouldn't be necessarily trying to kick him out the door, but
I'm not either.
Sure.
By the way.
But I do think that if you decided, hey, and he decided, hey, I'm willing to explore that. Yeah, I don't think you have any problem getting rid of his money. Do you get a lot back for him in conjunction with the money? I don't really know the answer to that. To me, though, he's still going to hold more value to this team than he would on the trade block, because I'm not necessarily trying to save money for ownership where I'm not sure they're going to do a lot of spending anyway this winter.
And he's really good off the field as well.
Oh,
I'm
for
just
sure.
wondering if this team, and this has nothing to do with money, it has to do with growth,
Sure.
A team growing together. But Mark Feinstein reporting that the teams that don't get a Eugenio Suarez will apparently there will be some that have shown interest in pivoting to Arenado. So if you could do that, and hey, this is a big if, a lot of ifs here, but you've got Sajacy, you've got Weatherholt on the way, you've got Wynn, you've got Donovan, you've got Burleson to play first or Walker to play first, and then all of a sudden you're looking at Herrera, you're looking at Scott, Walker, or Burleson and Wright. Very youthful lineup. Granted, you lose a lot of pop, your best pop if you get rid of Willson Contreras, but a young team with an opportunity to grow. And the big thing I'm looking at, nobody can wait for Weatherholt to get here. You got to open up a spot.
You do
for Weatherholt, and I would guess that the Cardinals will do everything they can to open up third base for him.
Yeah, and that's where I would say I'm on board. If Arenado is still a Cardinal throughout the rest of the week, okay, I still think they try again in November, because it just feels as though they're not matching up on exactly the timelines of where his career is headed, where the Cardinals as an organization are, and where they're headed the next couple of years. I think originally when he was traded to the Cardinals, right, they tacked on that extra year for 2027 at $15 million. And that was probably designed as more of a placeholder.
Yeah.
I don't know if he ever thought he'd be playing on that salary for 2027, but now that he's kind of struggling offensively and the market for trades wasn't maybe what he had hoped it would have been this past winter, it just puts you in a really interesting spot where if you're the Cardinals, moving on from him just to open up a spot, I think is the point that they're at. I really appreciate Arenado, and he's a Hall of Fame player in my opinion. But with where everything is right now, if you can get out from some of the money, it doesn't really matter what you're getting back for him. I think that's a reasonable avenue to explore as long as he's okay with the landing spot and everybody can agree this time. I think you do that. And if you do it this week, which, I mean, there have been some rumblings that that's a possibility, as you mentioned, from Feinsand, I actually think that's to the benefit of the organization because it gives you one extra spot to figure out Gorman before 2026, because that's where you do need to have that spot available for Weatherholt. And and he's not healthy now, but he's at Springfield. If Gorman can get a month and a half to the end of the season where we say, hey, look, the plate appearances get up to 400, 450, we've got a sample size, decide future Cardinal or past Cardinal, and figure that out. If it's hey, Gorman's he slugged 30 homers this year, well, maybe you keep him and move somebody else. But you're right, they do have to get that figured out. Arenado to me is the first step, and then you kind of proceed from there.
Jen's on the chat. Could they package Helsley with Nato to a contender to entice Nato to waive his no trade? Probably not. But the one thing that you could do, and this is outside the box thinking, it's kind of, and I think Matthew and I talked about this last week, it's kind of more NBA, NFL, NHL thinking. Not necessarily I don't know if the Cardinals have this creativity gene right now, but to me, an interesting thought would be to go to the Dodgers, and you would have had to lay the groundwork for this last week or the week before. But you go to the Dodgers and you say, okay, Helsley, Maton, and Matz, they're all yours in exchange for one of your young pitchers, whoever it might be. And they say, okay, well, what's the catch? And the catch is you have to take Arenado in his contract. The value that you're getting back from that trade is that you're getting out from under Nolan Arenado. And the Dodgers don't care about money anyway. So what you're doing is trading those three pitchers to get out from under the contract, not to get assets back from LA.
Yeah, I think that's hard to do if you're giving them all of the bullpen. because there could be some value extracted from that.
Could be.
But I mean, what's your impetus? What is your main goal with this deadline? I think the Arenado thing is increasingly something that they would love to be able to get done. And I bet, what was the list? 5 teams, and you crossed off Houston because he said no thanks. So 4 teams. I bet if there was something that came together that was a team that wasn't on that list, I don't know. I feel like he might have more of a willingness, as long as it's like a legit contender, a chance to win. I think there's been enough frustration with, not saying his frustration with the Cardinals, but general frustration with his season, the direction of the way things are going. I wouldn't be surprised if he would kind of YOLO and say, all right, let's go try to win a ring right now. I'm mired in this season. Maybe a change of scenery gets my production up for wherever I go. It might not take being a team on that previous list to get it done this week.
And as you guys know, because you are the ones that tell me about this, I'm on the Cardinal payroll.
And they do treat you well.
They treat me well, from what I understand.
You're taken care of, from what they say.
Yeah,
from what the live chats.
I'm still waiting, but from what I understand,
checks in the mail.
When my ship comes in, it's going to be exorbitant. Okay, so I'm waiting for that. But if I were in charge, I'm more interested in opening up third base for somebody else than I am the money. I need to do something to get some of the money off my payroll at least. That was an idea to get all the money off my payroll, but I'm more interested in opening up third base for somebody else.
And it's kind of in the same ilk of last year, you had guys like Lynn and Kyle Gibson, and the plan was don't let the bottom fall out of the rotation. The plan worked. The plan worked to an 83-win season. It wasn't quite enough to get in the playoffs. And so what do? They say, all right, we're not going to continue chasing our tail when it comes to the rotation. We're going to give a full runway to a guy like Liberatore. We're going to give a full runway to a guy like Pallante. We're going to leave McGreevy available when there's one injury. He's going to be getting that opportunity as well. Obviously, that it took a while to get him in there full time. That was their approach to pitching this year. With Arenado, we were like, man, that's a Hall of Famer. You can't just give him away for nothing. And that was kind of now I feel like we're a little bit closer to, were Lynn and Gibson quality performers for this team? Absolutely. But did you have to almost be willing to step back to move forward? I think that's the case, because you're not going to go up with Arenado. You've seen the best of Arenado, and you've seen the current version of him, and it's not returning to the prior form, we don't believe, not in St. Louis. And therefore, to move forward, is Gorman going to give you more wins in 2025 down the stretch at third base than Arenado? Maybe not, but I think you got to find out what he is.
And, hey, this team is built for 27. When the Cardinals they hope to contend for playoff spot next year, but they expect to be really good in 27. And in 27, Nolan Arenado is not.
You like to expect to be really good for a season that's not going to happen, though, too. That's pretty. That's pretty fun.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm sorry. I had to throw that in there.
So, all right. Move Oliver Marmol, Dusty Blake, and John Mozeliak. These 3 men are the problem with the Cardinals since 2023.
Can I do an eject button from from my seat here and just fly through the roof?
Yeah. All right. You mama, Willson and JoJo would entice me if I was a payroll conscious contender. So Willson.
JoJo, certainly. And again, Willson has to approve it.
Mm-hmm.
Would you move JoJo this week? I don't think the Cardinals have the stomach to do it, but I think it's the bold thing because his value will never be higher.
And Matz is going to, it would be bold, but Matz is going to be gone.
I know.
King is not, it's not happening. Liberatore's not in the bullpen anymore.
I know.
So if you don't have JoJo, who's your lefty
reliever? You lose more games this year. You do.
Yeah.
And that's a concern. You don't want it to turn into 2023 where down the stretch you had guys off the street coming in and pitching bulk innings and just having to eat it. And that the morale of the team dissipates when that is the atmosphere and the environment in August, September. But man, so maybe you don't trade them all, but JoJo is one where he has been so good. He might get you back more than a Maton or even maybe a Helsley. I don't know. The name recognition of Helsley is pretty high, and he's starting to pitch better recently. What Romero brings from the left side and another year of control would have to be really enticing right now. And again, if you're looking at 26 and saying that's kind of another middling year, and you can get a real piece for JoJo right now. If you can't, you can't, and you don't push it. But if somebody's knocking on my door hard for him, I think I'd have to listen as the Cardinals right now.
Okay, I had to look this up, but I'm going to ask Matthew Rocchio if he remembers the 2023 Holy Trinity out of the Cardinal bullpen.
In 23, what makes them so holy?
Just because they were 3 guys that were really bad.
Bad or...
Was 2023 when they tried to make Luke Gregerson happen again?
No, this was so we had Drew Verhagen.
Oh, Droover.
AKA
Droover season. Yeah.
AKA Chris Vonderhaar. We had my favorite of the Holy Trinity, Casey Lawrence.
Casey Lawrence was a good one.
Oh my God, I remember the other name we said that clearly I remember it very well. Drew Verhagen, but Casey Lawrence is not a name I really remember.
I got the other one for you, probably.
Wait a second.
If Rockio doesn't have it, I think I've got it. I've got two actually, but one in particular.
Okay.
I'm blanking on this one.
So
it's actually pretty good. Give me Jacob Barnes.
Bingo.
Got Jacob Barnes.
Well done.
Now, what about, I don't know how well this guy performed, but Andrew Suarez was also part of that mix where he was down in the minors the whole year, and then they called him up when it was time to blow it up. Keep the name Aaron Wilkerson in mind, by the way, in this conversation, because if they do trade a few guys and they just need some bulk innings, I think they've still got Plesac kicking around down there as well, right? In Memphis.
Our pitches tonight.
And he had actually a couple better starts recently. So like they've got the chamber stocked in case they decide to go in a direction over the next few days that could mirror that. You just don't want it to devolve into that, because that was bleak. That was a tough time to be following the Cardinals, and even probably a tougher time to be playing for them.
No doubt. And by the way, I just didn't have the heart to put James Nail in that group because he's a local guy.
Well, he's a KBO legend as well now. He's over there.
Is he?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure last check he's been, which is, you kind of think about that and go, all right, Eric Fetty was a stud over there, and the Cardinals are like, well, of course it was the White Sox that first got him, but it was like, oh, we got to get this guy back. Would you now, if you learned that James Nail was just lighting it up in Korea, go, that's a guy for my rotation next year? Probably not. So maybe a lesson learned.
Okay, so let's talk about the rotation, because as you heard B-Schaeff say, and if you have not heard, Tekoa Roby, shocker, is going to have to undergo Tommy John surgery.
I believe he had it Friday.
Right. And so he is out for 2026, and he'll be back for a season that they're
James Nail has a 2.5 ERA this year in KBO.
Let's bring him back.
Good for him.
So next year's rotation is going to be Sonny Gray, Matthew Liberatore, Andre Pallante, Michael McGreevy, Kyle Leahy.
Leahy's my guy. If you had to start the 2026 season today with the guys under contract, Leahy would be my number 5. Yeah.
So the Cardinals are going to need to get themselves a 6th and a 7th starter.
And probably an 8th one. Yeah. I mean, because you're talking about Pallante, former reliever starter. Okay, he can, we saw last night, when it's going well, he can give you innings. Liberatore, we know, already we're kind of seeing him hit a wall at times this year with
Hopefully
innings.
He ascends next year.
That's what
able to give you more.
That's what you hope for. McGreevy is maybe Pallante plus. Like you're hoping that he can get a little bit more swing and miss than Pallante to avoid, well, the kind of outings we saw from McGreevy this weekend. But again, that's a guy that I think durable, you hope, because of the style of his pitching. Sonny is interesting. Like we kind of pencil him in. He said he wants, I saw John Denton report, he wants to be here through this trade deadline. He'll maybe revisit in the offseason. That's a lot of money for next year if they decide that
35, right?
If he goes on a roll at the end of the season and they're able to get rid of it in a year where they're not contending, like, would you move that money if you can get rid of most of it and then sign a $10 million replacement? I think that's a reasonable course of action.
$10 million pitchers.
And that's what I think they need to do. They need 5 or 6 Phil Matons for next year roster. Not all relievers, but they need to, if they're going to have any hopes of like sneaking into the playoffs, which I think is a worthy pursuit. Those are the kinds of free agents that they'll have to pursue. Those guys in the 2 to 5 to 7 to 8 to $10 million range.
And this is the value of having an actual minor league system, to have Chaim Bloom not only watching the Cardinals minor league teams, but all of minor league baseball this year. But not only Chaim, but Larry Day is out there. Rob Cerfolio is out there. They've hired more scouts. They've got more pro scouts this year. They've got more coaches to watch other teams that they can bounce things off of. So hopefully the Cardinals will have a better idea as they look at the minor leagues of who has a chance to be good and who's available. Remember a couple of years ago, they got 3 guys from Boston. Riley O'Brien was one of them, Ryan Fernandez, and then Nick Robertson. And Chaim had been with Boston, so kind of knew them. But it looks like only one of them is, well, maybe Fernandez comes back next year. But at the moment, it looks like O'Brien is the only one.
You're seeing Fernandez this week.
Okay, good point.
No, we have no idea. We have no idea. I tease. No, you're right, though. Like, that's the hope. And again, I'd like some of that process to begin right now, where if you are making some trades, it's so tough because if you had to move a bat, we know there's a surplus there. A couple of them are injured. It's good that Gorman and Nootbaar right now are on the rise, back to health, back rehabbing this week. That's a plus. Do teams take a chance on either? Do the Cardinals decide now is the time to move either for value when they've been injured and their value is likely depleted? But man, finding a way to swing a trade for a controllable arm, whether it's a guy in someone's AAA, whether it's a guy like a Taj Bradley who is, and look, maybe you don't think Taj Bradley's any good. Ideally, the Cardinals have hired Heimblum, Rob Cerfolio, Matt Pierpont, all the guys that are supposed to be the pitching development guys, and they're able to kind of go pick and choose from other systems and say, we'll give up value to get value because we think we can work with this guy. I'd love to see something like that happen this week, if not now in November as well, because like you said, they need pitching.
Who's your starting five next year again?
Sonny, Libby, Pallante, McGreevy, Leahy. Right now, I would bring into camp as a stretched out guy for number 5.
Let's see, Bubs. I think picking up a free agent starting pitcher would be great. Yeah, they're going to have to go outside the organization a little bit more for next year than they did this past off season. They're going to have to. And by the way, the money's not getting any higher. You saw the crowd last night. The payroll won't be substantially higher. The revenue is going to be substantially lower. So you're not going out and signing a $30 million pitcher. The level of pay that the Cardinals can turn out in a contract, we're talking budget here, right? We're not talking premier guys. We're talking finding guys that hopefully you can develop and polish up and turn into something better than what you had last year,
and better than what you're paying them too. Like that, be right about some of the guys you go out and got. Like to Mo's credit, they got Phil Maton. They were right about him. He was worth the $2.5 million that they paid him, and hopefully now he turns into a prospect that can help you down the line. Like that's a really savvy signing that happened late in the process. But you need to make a number of those types of signings where if it doesn't work out, okay, you cut bait and you spent a little bit of money, not the end of the world. If it does, and we're right back in this spot next year where you're not contending, boom, that's another prospect. If it works out so well that you're in the running for playoffs, great. Maybe fans will start to flock back to the ballpark. 20,500 they announced last night. You'll never see him announced lower than 20. No. Like it's to that point where it's like, okay, 20,500. Sure.
Right.
Of course.
Okay, fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's
Love
like when Charlie Army had a rule with the old St. Louis Rams that no player would ever be listed at less than 5'10" on the roster.
Right.
And Marshall Falk's probably 5'8".
Yeah.
And London Fletcher's 5'9". And London Fletcher went to the PR department and said, hey, I'm not 5'10", I'm 5'9". And he actually got the rule changed.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm proud of doing what I do at my height. I'm gonna own that. That's cool.
We got this one from You Mama. Yankees need an outfielder and a reliever. Newt and Helsley. Make it happen. Well, the Yankees aren't the only contender that need an outfielder and a reliever. The Doyers, with Michael Conforto hitting about 174, they could use an outfielder.
They could use Newt.
Could use a reliever.
They could use Newt so much.
Yep.
And by the way, be ready for, like, if you're a Cardinals fan who's like tired of hearing about Lars Nootbaar, if he did become a Dodger and he could stay healthy, be ready to really it'll flip. It'll be like the Edman trade on steroids where you're like, I can't believe we gave up Tommy Edman.
Mm-hmm.
Like Nootbaar has the underlying skill set to potentially thrive, certainly in a place like that where he doesn't have to be your best or your second best hitter. He's going to be the 7th best guy on a roster like that.
Buddies with Shohei.
It would go really well.
From LA, played at USC.
Yeah.
He'd be a fan favorite there he is here.
And I like Nootbaar a lot. I came into the season thinking, man, if he stays healthy, they should extend him.
Me too.
He hasn't stayed healthy. The durability has for another year. And whether it's his fault or flukish, whatever it is, like you're in a $1 billion industry, you've got to make decisions. And if you're talking about a big contract extension for a guy and you're not seeing him on the field frequently enough, it's nothing personal. It's might have more value to your org as a trade chip than as somebody that you keep around and wait. Because let's say next year's the year that he puts it all together and is durable. Well, now he's almost a free agent. Are you really going to be able to sign him? Or is he going to say, I just had a career year, I'm going to wait, and then you get nothing for him when he leaves?
Fat Bob on the chat, sell. So, okay, we've talked about the 3 relievers, okay? We've talked about the possibility of Arenado. We just talked about Nootbaar. Aside from that, though, if you are going to try to win in the next few years, and I know there's a lot of talk about talk that I don't understand, by the way.
Yeah.
About trying to move Brenden Schaeffer.
Thank you. That's what I was hoping you were going to say.
Let's be serious. Let's be the best fans in baseball. But I'm not moving Donovan. I'm not moving Wynn. I'm not selling Walker this low. I'm not moving Herrera. I'm not moving Scott. I'm not moving Pages.
How about he's been your best hitter. what's the future of Alec Burleson and all this? Is he just, he's a middle order bat, don't care where he plays? Because I think we've accepted that about Herrera. Don't care where he is. If he's a DH, he's a DH. But can you have two of those guys? And is Burleson's bat enough to say, he's going to be another one of those guys and we figure it out? Or do you say his value right now with a lot of team control, you could net, maybe without attaching anything else, a legit arm or something that you really could use?
B-Schaeff is the reason that I asked you about Willson Contreras.
Okay.
So if you're going to have Willson Contreras and you know you're going to have Contreras playing first, then I think he's a movable commodity. And by the way, I think what we're seeing is kind of what you're going to get. I'd say 20 to 25 home runs, good hitter, great bat to ball skills, maybe a 780, which is a nice player. Is
this Burley that you're on?
Yeah.
And right now he's 814. I mean, he's having the breakout type of season. Once he started getting playing time, what I love about him though is 47 strikeouts and 362 plate. The dude,
bat to ball's it's far and away the best on this team.
That's a hard thing. Like when we're talking about, okay, we want the raw power. In our minds, we think Gorman. That's who supplies that for this organization. Sink or swim. We know what comes with it. With Burleson, if I can get the 20 to 25 homers and 75 strikeouts in a year, I don't want to give up on that unless I'm getting a true, like, controllable front line type of starting pitcher. I'm going to be pretty stubborn about Burley, I think. And
here's another thing is we have a tendency, and I have this tendency too, to underestimate the value of doubles. Because doubles are a slugging stat. And this is a guy that's got 19 doubles this year. He'll wind up with 24, 25 doubles. He'll wind up with 20 home runs. He'll wind up with between 45 and 50 extra base hits. There's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, and he's taken more walks than we've seen historically. He's not a big guy that's going to walk a ton, but he's doing it at a requisite rate. He's got a 340 on base. Like if this is Burleson, 814 OPS, and you can just cut and paste his numbers into future seasons, that's a middle order bat that you don't really have to think about. It's not a superstar, but it's a guy that's really sturdy in a good lineup.
So from the perspective of sell, he's not one of the guys that I'm going to say by Thursday at 5:00. No. I need to move that guy.
I think mostly when they say sell, it's like you can't leave a reliever who's got expiring contract on this roster. And I generally agree with that. I do point out that you don't want it to turn into 2023. Does that hinder the development of some of your other young players, that it's meaningful, and Ollie and the Cardinals believe it's meaningful for these guys to be involved in competitive, legitimate, meaningful baseball games, even if it's not for the standings this year, but to win games down the stretch develops you into winning players.
Yeah.
I get all that. I think there's an opportunity that you miss if you let that drive the ship more so than we can get some real pieces to help us for some of these relievers that have value right now.
Ellipsis 150. Donovan is 28. If the Cardinals aren't planning on being a legit contender for 3 to 4 years, that'll make him 31 or 32, potentially on the decline. Let me start with this.
Let's dive into this. This is good.
Yeah, because the Cardinals plan on being a legit contender in 27, in 2 years. So they aren't looking at 3-4 years down the road. There are so many examples of franchises that get deep into the playoffs or the World Series coming off of 54, 62 wins. Look at the Diamondbacks. Didn't the Diamondbacks, the year they went to the World Series, they won 54 games, I thought, the year before, or maybe it was 2 years before. But it doesn't take 3 or 4 years to turn around a franchise anymore. So let's start there.
Thank you. That is the starting point, because I've seen this, and I'm not trying to pick on Ellipsis 150 here, but I've seen this expressed by a lot of Cardinals fans as a reason that you have to move Donovan because they're not planning to contend for 3 to 4 years. It is not a 3 to 5 year rebuild. They didn't even use the R word this year to say that this was a rebuilding year. And again, you can disagree with that. They're right here going to finish 500, a little above, a little below. So I would say that if you're rebuilding and truly going all in on that, that's akin to tanking. And that's just not the way they've managed the team this year. You may disagree with that. You may think that that's what they needed. I think that people don't have the stomach that they think they have for 100 lost seasons in St. Louis, Missouri. I do not believe that.
No.
Again, you're not supporting now. It's not a sustainable thing to say we're going to punt on 3 to 5 years. And I don't think they have to. I know that the pitching in the minors has taken a hit where it's not going to be as close to ready as we had hoped. But I think there's enough talent in this org that they can continue to be, you're going to hate it, but in the middle for another year or two, as they continue to go, all right, here's the foundation. And when we're ready to spend, and probably coinciding with the CBA stuff, it's not going to be this long process where Donovan is, old and decrepit by the time the Cardinals are ready to potentially do some winning. He's a keystone, in my opinion.
And he's a good play. He's your best player.
Yes.
For me, unless you are a team that, and tanking doesn't do any good anymore because you only get back-to-back. You cannot get back-to-back top 10 picks in the draft anymore. So tanking doesn't do you any good.
And by the way, they just got number 5 from winning 83 games.
We had 7 and 5, right?
Yep.
So that's part of it. The other part of it is you don't know what you're getting back when you get prospects. I mean, let's look at some of the trades that have been made. What did the Marlins get when they traded Christian Yelich? And they, by the way, got 2 top 10 prospects from Milwaukee. One of them was Lewis Brinson, and another guy is playing wide receiver for the University of Arkansas football team now. He's at 30 years old.
Yeah.
When you look at what the Red Sox got in exchange for Mookie Betts, they have nothing to show for it. You can look around at all the stars that have been moved. Look at what the Diamondbacks got for Paul Goldschmidt. Just because you trade a good player and you get prospects back doesn't mean those prospects are going to be good. And I'm sure there's a ton of interest in Brendan Donovan, but why trade a guy that you already know is good? He's your best player. And not only that, but he's a fan favorite. He's an all-star, and he's a guy that has taken a leadership role in your clubhouse. Why would you want to move that out for things that you don't know anything about?
What I see most often as a response to that is, well, JJ's coming. You got to clear a spot for Weatherholt. That's great. Have 2 really good players that can lead your team instead of 1, and you figure out the positional aspect of it. You've got the most versatile defender in baseball, and you're going, we got to clear second base for JJ. It's like, okay, JJ's also pretty versatile. I think he's an athletic kid that's going to be able to move around. You don't have to move your best guy because he has a little bit of positional crossover with the best prospect that's on the way. You move a guy that's been less productive. And when it comes to Donovan, he's a stud. He's not a superstar that's going to make $30 million a year. You can do an extension for him that's not going to break the bank by any stretch of the imagination. And again, I think that messaging to the fan base is important, that it's not going to be a 3 to 5 year rebuild. This guy's going to win with us. That's the reason that we're locking him up.
I made this suggestion to a Cardinal front office employee over the weekend, and I was soundly rejected, by the way. But I said, hey, why not make J.J. Weatherholt the next Corbin Carroll? Why not put him in right field? He can run. He's got a great arm. He's a good left-handed hitter. He's a smart ball player. He's kind of built like Carroll. I think he's got another 10 pounds on Corbin Carroll. And the response I got was, no, he's a great infielder. We're just going to keep him there. But he could be that guy.
Yeah. And look, you got to figure out some things. Okay, if you move someone to the outfield, who's getting bumped off, what's happening there. Totally fine with that. And look, if they're kind of circling third base and saying Donnie's going to play in one spot, JJ's going to play in the other, you pick which guy you think sticks better at third. It's probably JJ with a good arm. And I think Donnie's, he can move, but I think his best spot is second base. And so you do that. And well, you're not going to get as much for Gorman. Okay. Sometimes if you want to be the better team, you have to move a guy, and I'm not saying cut your loss on Gorman. Hopefully he builds up some value or builds it up to the point where you want him in your lineup next year. And that clarity comes from the August and September runway. But at a certain point, I just find it silly that you say, well, they got JJ. What do they need Donovan for? Okay, you've got one best player that should be your best player soon, but you want to just stay in the middle and replace your other best player. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Here's a great rule of thumb that I have come to accept. If the Dodgers want your guys, keep them. Right? The Dodgers wanted Tommy Edman for 3 years. And the Dodgers are interested in Nolan Gorman,
Arenado.
Not Arenado, but Donovan. Brenden.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So I remember one time, Matthew Rockio, do you remember Troy Drayton?
No.
Okay, so Troy Drayton was a tight end that came with the LA Rams to St. Louis in 95, 96. And they traded him to Jimmy Johnson's Miami Dolphins. And I said to Steve Ortmeyer, the late general manager of the St. Louis Rams, I said, does it give you pause when Jimmy Johnson wants one of your guys? Because he doesn't lose trades. And he said, well, no, I don't have any pause. This is a trade that he's going to lose. And then Troy Drayton went on to play like 8 more years in the NFL and had a really good career. Billy Milner, the guy they got from Miami, was gone in a year. There are some teams, some organizations, some talent evaluators where if they want your guy, you say, nope, I'll keep him.
What's tricky about that, though, is like, I think for this iteration of the Cardinals, Mo has had a very limited scope in terms of like the teams that he has been able to trade with. I don't know that he doesn't negotiate with other teams and it just falls through, or if it's like literally the only negotiations that are happening at a meaningful level are with those teams that they seem to have a rapport with. I don't know why that would be.
It's like 6 teams, right?
It's very bizarre though, right? And so like there are some teams where there's a comfort level to make trades with them, but also you'd like to think that the pool is open to where anybody out there could be available to you if the assets match up, and that hasn't seemingly been the case in recent years, especially with Mo. And so the Rays would be an example of a team the Cardinals have traded with, but it's almost like, all right, put another one over on us because we haven't been able to figure out anywhere else to go. I think they're comfortable trading with the Dodgers because they've like had the rapport at least built up that there's a comfort level there. But that is a weird one for me.
But one of the things that I do like about a situation like this is as the Cardinals prepare for this trade deadline where they've got to get rid of several relievers, they can count on Sean Armstrong because he's been such a stud in their bullpen. And so they can count on Sean Armstrong just bringing him out.
In fairness, like Carlson hasn't really panned out.
Didn't we DFA him in 3 weeks though?
I think that's right. Yeah. I mean, well, and that's what people got upset about the Edmund trade is because Pham hit a grand slam, and then a month later, right before it was time for him to like, if he was still on the roster, he was going to rot in September because it was clear they weren't going to make the playoffs. He's like, get me out of here.
That's exactly
and
what
so
it
they
was.
did. So they did. But that's part of the reason people didn't like that trade too.
Yeah. JJ is the only name anyone ever talks about in this system. You have really no other potential great players in your farm system.
Interesting.
That's why you trade a player like Donovan and hope that lottery ticket hits. See, and I buy lottery tickets all the time.
That's a bad strategy.
I'm still hoping.
That's a bad strategy, man. I just don't get it. Look, you might hit on a prospect, and he might turn into like Brendan Donovan. Well, you've got him. Just why are fans so afraid to spend DeWitt's money? Like, look, I'm not. What would a contract extension for Donovan be after this year? 2 years of ARB, 3 years of free agency with an option. Is it 5? And look, I don't know what he's making this year, but it's a few million. If it's $5 million next year, $8 million in the final year of ARB, call it 10. That's 15. If it's $15 to $20 million a year in the open market, let's call it 20. Is it 5 years and 85 million, 75 million? I don't know. That's nothing. Like you can have guys like that on your books as Sonny comes off, as Michaelis comes off, as Arenado comes off. Like you can do those things. Why do Cardinals fans simultaneously say spend, but then when you have a good player in house, they're like, well, we should trade him. No, just spend. You can spend on in-house. I don't know if it's going to be a deal that works out for the Kansas City Royals, but they extended Seth Lugo this week instead of trading him. Why? He's been extremely productive for their team, and they want to continue to have him on the team. It could kind of go the way of a Michaelis deal because he's getting up there in age, but Brendan Donovan is not. He's 28. If you give him 5 years, he's going to be in his early 30s still. When that contract expires, it's going to be fine. He's going to produce. He's going to be a team leader in your clubhouse. Give him the dollars.
And I get what you're saying about the general populace saying that JJ Weatherholt is the only player in the organization, which is not the case. I mean, they've got 3 catchers that have a chance to wind up being really good major league catchers. So you look up the names: Jimmy Crooks, Bernal, and Ramirez, 3 really good young catchers.
Reno Rodriguez, I think, was
Rodriguez,
the third one.
Yeah. See, even I didn't know.
But he's still a ways to go.
He's
as
an
a
A-ball,
teenager.
but you've got those 3. You've got several pitchers, although the only one healthy now appears to be Quinn Matthews, and you hope that he's healthy. And he has not had a good year, but Quinn Matthews is a prospect that the Cardinals really like, and they've got some other guys. Here's the thing, though. When you say Weatherholt's the only guy that we hear about in the system, JC is 23. Mason Wynn is 23. Jordan Walker is 23. Victor Scott is 24. McGreevy is 24.
They graduated a lot of the guys.
Granillo is 25. You've got a bunch of guys. Graceffo is 25. So you've got a lot. Nolan Gorman, 25. Herrera, 25. You've got a lot of good young players that, for a lot of organizations at their age, would still be in the system.
Yeah, they've graduated. I mean, when you graduate Mason Wynn and Victor Scott basically in consecutive years, look, those guys have to produce at the big league level, and I still think we're continuing to see, requisite to their respective ages, that these guys are still growing professionally into what they're ultimately going to become. But yeah, like let's give the Cardinals credit for graduating those guys and having them on the major league roster. I think that's an aspect of at the end of season press conference 2024, when they announced all these changes were coming. I think that's a little bit of the aspect why Bill DeWitt was pushing back a little on this notion of we haven't developed players. And he said, well, look at all the young players that we have on the team. Those guys have to eventually pan out for that to become a legitimate claim. But it is true that they have graduated these guys and they're in the lineup now.
They have. And the issue I think that I have, and a lot of people have, and it's not necessarily the fault of the major league staff, is that all of these guys on this major league staff, not all of them, but Stubby Clapp, Pop Warner, Ali Marmol, Dean Kieffer, these guys were all developing young players in the Cardinal system. And then you add Mike Schilt and add Mark DeJean to that group. You had a really strong group of people that were developing players at the minor league system. They all came up to the majors, or in the case of Schilt, came up and then got fired, or DeJean, his best friend, retired because of it. And all of a sudden you didn't have any good minor league development people. So you were graduating players,
right,
like you said, to the major league level, but they couldn't necessarily play well. And it wasn't the players' fault. It was the organization's fault, and they admitted it at the end of last year. We were negligent about developing players and having enough coaching at the minor league level. And that's something that hopefully they have fixed, and players now, when they get to the majors, will be more prepared for the majors.
And they've at least fixed it in terms of the resources they're devoting, because we have seen the hires that were made. They've added or adjusted departments. Like they've had organizational hierarchy be restructured to implement certain positions that it kind of was a void previously. And now it's been less than 12 calendar months since we've seen all this take place. So you do have to be a little bit patient. I know you don't like that word, but I think it's relevant in this case where, all right, like I think Rob Cerfolio is super sharp. I think Chaim Bloom brought him in for a reason. And the folks that are underneath him, they're going to continue to get their hands on things and move this organization forward. It doesn't happen overnight. And there's a frustration where like we saw some of these minor league pitchers performing and then they all happened to get hurt. I don't know what it is. Is it bad luck? Is it something under the hood that had been happening? Is it still happening? Like that's something that I can't necessarily speak to, but I feel like they do have the resources and the structure in place now to be able to get something done with these guys in the long haul.
Hey, I am going to head on over to Matthew. Go ahead.
We're talking about this, and I feel like the Donovan conversation is going to keep rolling a little bit here because the chat's loving it. I put up a poll on the YouTube chat. So if you're watching right now, and over 300 of you are right now live in the YouTube chat, would you trade Donny if the return was 2 top prospects? Yes or no? Pretty simple there. And because you guys already talked about, one of those deals being 2 top 10 prospects and then not working out for a team. So far, a little bit higher than I expected on the yeses, 44%, 47%. The yeses are, oh my God, it's about to hit 50-50 right here.
Wow.
It was 60% no to start, and it has shifted directly to a 49%, 51% split.
Yeah, I mean, people.
It's amazing.
And again, top prospect can be defined in different ways, I suppose. But this idea that you get these guys that you're hoping can turn into a player akin to Donovan. I think they're hoping for a player better than Donovan.
In this concept, let's call them 2 top 10 for a team.
Yeah, I don't care about that.
I know, but I'll say this: maybe 2 top 10, like top 150 overall prospects.
Yeah, like if you're talking 2 top 100,
yes,
then I'm like, all right, well, who and
let's
what?
Let's put it in that context. 2 top 100.
I would still need to know who I'm getting and what can I project for those guys, because you can find top 100 prospects that flame out all the time. I mean, you can find Jordan Walker was like among the very top in the game. He was number 1 at one point in time, if I'm recalling. It's not to say that he has flamed out. It's not past tense at this point, but like, the production you've gotten from Jordan Walker does not match when you're thinking top prospect in baseball, at least not yet. And so when you're thinking about it in the context of a Brendan Donovan trade, it doesn't get much more of a known quantity than what Brendan Donovan is giving you. And to keep him at that pace for 5 years, all you need to do is give him money. You don't need to do anything else. And they're going to need to spend some money eventually anyway, rather than do it on a free agent that you're not really sure what he's going to become. You know what this guy is. There's no more sure thing than Brendan Donovan in Major League Baseball.
Do you think a team that gave up an all-star player in 2014 to the Cardinals for Alex Reyes and Oscar Taveras would be happy with that deal?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that is a way that you could frame it.
Both of them were Cardinals top
Sure.
guy, number one guy.
Yeah. And now obviously with Taveras, there's those extenuating circumstances.
But they did happen.
But I would say Alex Reyes is a great example because that guy looked electric. And like sometimes the prospects come up and they don't look electric. He came up and did, and still it did not pan out ultimately for the Cardinals. I think another great example, I remember when the Matt Holliday trade happened, and I was like, Brett Wallace, I mean, it's great that they're getting Matt Holliday, but man, I sure hope they don't come to regret that. You never thought about Brett Wallace the rest of your life. Like that, of course, that was a slam dunk trade. More often than not, the team trading for the known quantity is getting the dub. There are always outlier examples where, oh, I can't believe they traded so-and-so. I can't believe, you can come up with those examples, but man, it's not all of them where that happens.
And I'll leave the extenuating circumstances out of it. How about 2018? Trade an all-star for Alex Reyes and Dylan Carlson.
Yeah, Carlson is another phenomenal example. And I thought Dylan Carlson was going to be, offensively what Brendan Donovan has been, but it didn't happen.
Never a top 100.
No, the guy, built his career brick by brick with his work ethic and the way that he grinded out becoming the guy that he is. That's why I'm not going to, that guy to me is not the guy that falls off until it's, when did Matt Carpenter fall off later in his career? Yeah. That's another guy who was a whatever round pick signing bonus that he, one of those stories where he thought he was going to have to pay them to get signed. And so that wasn't the point. He was going to build himself into a really good big leaguer. I'm not getting rid of those types of guys when he's got age 29, 30, 31, 32 coming up, and is going to continue to perform in those years.
By the way, the general player, the sweet spot for a career is 28 to 32.
Like you can live with this. And look, if he wants a 9-year deal, they go, okay, wait a minute. I don't think Brendan Donovan's going to be unreasonable. I think he's going to want a contract that, has him secure, but tell him that you want him to be a face of your team because he's the right guy to do it with. I've seen it in the chat. Well, only keep him if you're going to extend him. Yeah, it's what I've been preaching since February. And of course, this year wasn't the year we knew they weren't spending, but and look, Randy, they could do this extension in November and still end up with a lower payroll next year because of some of the other things that are either coming off the books or trades that you're making of veterans where you may have to eat some money, but some of it could also go off the books.
Hey, did you know it's National Wing Day today?
I didn't know, but I know where you should go as a result of that.
I am going to Fenton Bar and Grill for lunch today, kids, because it is National Wing Day. And of course, I enjoy the best wings, best trashed wings in the St. Louis metro area, which, by the way, become the best trashed wings in America, which become the best trashed wings in the world over at the Fenton Bar and Grill. Look at those wings being slathered up with the signature golden sauce. Absolutely delicious. And if you aren't a wing person, number one, who hurt you? And number two, they have so many other great things. You see the toasted rab there. They have fantastic, fresh, cool, with the weather we've got in St. Louis, the chicken Caesar salad is to die for. They have wonderful wraps. And if you're in the mood for a burger, great burgers over there at the Fenton Bar and Grill. And the service staff is wonderful. Say hi to Megan. And I think Casey's out of town, but stop by and say hi to the other people there. Say hi to Candy and Jamie. The whole crew is so much fun, and they'll treat you so well at the Fenton Bar and Grill. And of course, the maitre d' of the year in 2024 in St. Louis, Chuck, the maitre d', the manager over at Fenton Bar and Grill. It's the dive with a vibe. And today, because it's a Monday, 10 trashed wings for $10. That's today from 5 to 9 p.m. Only dine in, and this is for a limited time. Also enjoy ice cold domestic bottles of beer for just $2. They'll be showing the Cardinals tonight on the TVs, and you can watch Sandy Alcantara pitch against the Cardinals. If you've never had the trashed wings, now's the time to see what the hype is all about. Fenton Bar and Grill, the place to go for the best wings in the world, luscious burgers, amazing salads, and tasty wraps. It's 2 minutes away from the soccer park in Fenton. You can learn more by going to FentonBarandGrill.com. And when you go, tell them Randy sent you to the Fenton Bar and Grill. All right, the chat is going.
It's hopping.
It's hop.
They got some thoughts, huh?
Yeah, which is great. Jay Renegade, JD, what do we got?
Pause. Baseball. We got to pause this because
what happened?
Your mom asks a very, very crucial question, although there was a typo in there. What is the difference between a trashed wing and a non-trashed wing?
Okay, so the seasoning for a trashed wing makes it a little bit different. It's got a little more zing, a little saltier, but it's absolutely delicious.
And then how they cook it's different.
It's like
so a regular
fried
wing,
almost.
Yes,
well, a regular wing is going to be fried and then tossed in sauce. The trash wing, they're going to add one more step. They're going to refry it.
Right.
After they toss it in the sauce,
bakes in that flavor,
and that way it bakes in the flavor. It actually tamps down the spice a little bit. That way you're kicking through it, so you don't have to get the ranch, but it does make it even tastier. So trash, in my opinion, it's the best way to make any wing. Therefore, it's not just the best trash wing in St. Louis. It's not the best trash wing in Missouri. It's therefore, to me, it's the best wing in St. Louis. The best wing
because
in
it's
Missouri,
a superior
so
style of wing. Got
crispier wing compared to traditional fried wings. And on National Wing Day, just go have the best wings in the world over at the Fenton Bar and Grill. All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And we appreciate the text about trash wings. All right. Did you, Mama, have with the hard-hitting questions? Yeah, we're glad to get that. Yum, Fenton Bar and Grill is the best, like that, from Nancy Renee. Thank you, Nancy. And let's see.
There's one in here from Renegade about, who was a no-doubter prospect, J.D. Drew. I don't actually know what that one means, because that was a no-doubter prospect who ended up having a really good career.
Yeah.
Go back and look at his numbers. If you have in your head that J.D. Drew stunk, go take a trip down Baseball Reference lane, and you will realize you are mistaken.
Renegade's a consistent listener, and I think he's bringing J.D. Drew up because when we were talking about the draft, we actually did a segment and reminded people why did people in St. Louis turn on this guy? This makes no sense in retrospect.
And his style was seen as almost like a lackadaisical, because he was just like a naturally gifted guy who didn't have that, he didn't have that edge that we appreciate. Brendan Donovan plays with an edge. I don't think anybody would say J.G. Drew play with an edge, but his numbers were there. I mean, the numbers were the numbers.
He was literally the natural. He never picked up a bat till he was 14. Goes to Florida State when he's 17, and he's the best player in college baseball. There are still college scouts that'll tell you that J.D. Drew is the best college baseball player they ever saw. And to your point, his career, the standard for elite for a lot of people is 300 batting average, 400 on base, 500 slug. For his career, 278 batting average, 384 on base, 489 slug. He was really close to being that 3-4-5 guy. Winds up with an 873 career OPS, but he did run into problems here and he was in a no-win situation. People got mad at him when he got hurt and didn't play, but then when he tried to play hurt and didn't perform, they got mad at him then too.
We got a chat here from Aaron Gallagher, and I get where he's coming from here, but this is why the context that we keep talking about is so important. Would you have traded Matt Carpenter in his all-star season for two top prospects, knowing how his career ended? I think that's Donovan, and I'm not sure.
2013?
Are you talking about 2013? Because I mean, he gives you literally 4 or 5. He gives you 6 more years of really quality play. If you're talking about the last time he really played well, when he finished top 10 in MVP voting in 2018, he was 32 that year.
Right.
And the shift was a thing. And so you have to add context of Donovan, we're talking about Donovan signing a 4 or 5 year deal that will take him to that age 32 season.
What a great point.
Diving in after the age 32 season. And also the shift factor is it broke Carpenter. Clearly he could still swing the bat.
The timing of when the shift became so prevalent as well. That is such a great, that encapsulates everything about the Brendan Donovan extension argument. 18 was the summer that Carpenter had those 3 months where he was en fuego, but people say, he had 6 good weeks, and they're wrong. I mean, if you go back and look, and he did it at age 32. That couldn't be more picture perfect to say, that's why you take Donovan through 29, 30, 31, 32. And then the fall off began with Carpenter. So maybe you take age 33 as part of that extension to get Donovan to sign it. But there's nothing to say that even at age 33, Carpenter was a 726 OPS. Not great anymore. The fall off had certainly begun. But again, even if that's what you get from Donovan, the extension takes him to that point, not past it.
And I think the game literally changed for Matt. And I talked to him about this pretty much because I thought it was notable and I thought it was glaring, but a lot of people didn't. But as he mentioned, in 2013, when he hit the 55 doubles, led the league, and hit more than Stan Musial, more home doubles in a season than Stan Musial ever did. The Cardinal record for a left-handed hitter for doubles in a year is held by Matt Carpenter. He said, in that year, I could expect 93, 94 sinker away, and I could just go the other way.
Flick it, yeah.
So, but within 3 years of that, all of a sudden it's 98, 99, 100 in on the hands, and you don't hit that ball the other way. So what you're trying to do is turn on it, and all of a sudden the shift is there, and the shift, there could not have been a worse perfect storm for Matt Carpenter's career than to have the up and in 100-mile-an-hour heater and the shift take place.
Oh, and by the way, he played at Busch Stadium, so when he did get under one, it was caught at the warning track. I remember when he came back, I believe it was when he was with the Yankees, but they were here for a series, and there was a ball that he hit, and I there was somebody covering the Yankees clubhouse that day, and I heard tell after the fact that it was like, right back here at Busch, like that sort of like, you know when you hit it that it's gone, except it's not. And Arenado has, kind of gone through that a little bit as well being here. And so you're right. There couldn't have been a more perfect storm that kind of caused some of the issues Carp had toward the end to kind of be exacerbated. But again, even with all of that, assuming Donovan had the exact same trajectory, which we've outlined the reasons why that's not smart to assume, you still do that extension because of the timing of it and the age that we're talking about.
I like this from Jay Boeck, Boek on the chat. Small ball is gone anymore in baseball. Power is everything now. I guess you missed the weekend. Because the Padres turned in 2 squeeze plays, one on Saturday and one on Sunday. They hit the ball the other way. They hit the ball on the ground to move runners up. They did all kinds of small ball things, and they're playing at a high level. Mike Shildt has his players playing small ball, and that's because they don't hit a lot of home runs. So what you do is you find other ways to manufacture runs, and they're doing it enough to win games.
You have to be good at those things, and it's why I think we all are on board with the philosophy that we have heard from Brant Brown, which is that there's a time to hit and a time to slug, and it's a good philosophy to have. You have to execute it consistently. You can't just say it and then have it be, well, why didn't we win as many games? I thought I thought this was our philosophy. You still have to execute on a daily basis consistently the philosophy. And I think we've seen spells where the Cardinals have done a good job of that this year. And then we've seen spells where they kind of maybe get away from it and they become a little bit too one-dimensional, trying to just homer their way to wins when they're not a very good home run hitting team. And so we've seen them kind of catch themselves in that and then work their way back out of it effectively. But that's a good point that we don't have to look very far back into the recent past to remember, there are teams doing this and doing it effectively when the situation calls for it.
With Donovan losing an arbitration case, is an extension realistic? When's the last time we gave a multi-year extension to a player we took to ARB?
They don't do it a lot.
That has not happened.
It's never happened. If you lose your arbitration case to the Cardinals, you don't sign an extension. That's the historical.
There's a new front office coming in, and they need to be the exception.
That's the big thing. Like I was talking about this with Claves yesterday. Like that is a huge historical point to this discussion. Mm-hmm. But the fact that it is a different group of people might be one. I mean, this Donovan's extension might low-key be one of the biggest factors of the changeover happening this year, and that is a historical fact. Great point by Wesley. And Chaim has a chance to come out right out of the gate and say, we're changing the history with a guy like Brendan Donovan out of the gate.
But will the guy, and we don't know. We haven't heard from Chaim Bloom at all. My concern would be, which is I've told you what I would do. I'd extend Donovan the day the season ends. My concern would be Chaim Bloom, what do we have to look off of? He was part of the Tampa front office that when a guy would get to 2 years away from free agency, that's when they would trade him. That's the concern. But the difference is, he wasn't the number one exec there, so we don't really know what his views on all of that are. I think he knows how to extract value, and I think that's what attracted Bill DeWitt and the ownership group to him. But can this ownership group prove that it's not the Tampa Bay Rays ownership? I will give that benefit of the doubt and that credit to the DeWitts until they show me that they don't deserve it, because to this point, we can look at all the success that they have had over the decades that they have been in charge of this thing, to where that's what gives me hope and confidence that they will break that trend and say, water under the bridge with what happened with this ARB stuff. It was a unique circumstance where ownership wasn't ready to commit, but then we saw it from Brendan Donovan again. And how can we not commit? That is the most important message they could send to the Cardinals fan base, that this isn't going to be, we're not the new Rays.
Right. They want to be a hybrid. Of Chaim Bloom's 2 places, Boston and Tampa. And Boston, heck, he signed Devers to the big contract there. I
believe they signed Trevor Story as well. Right. That was that hasn't panned out, but in terms of willingness to spend, that happened.
So everybody wants to be able to spend, and I think that's where the Cardinals are headed. I don't understand why the Cardinals would fight a key player over Donovan over $600K. Yeah, me either. But you know what? I do think that this. I think that John Mozeliak just got to a point where he just wanted to fight these guys, and
I also don't know. Like they were more apt to tussle and arb this past year than they had in any other year. Does part of that come from Chaim Bloom say, well, this is how we did it in Tampa, and it's what works? That's again, I don't know that that's true or not true. I'm just wondering aloud. They didn't usually bring 3 guys to arb in 1 year. It was like 1 at a time, and we made a big deal of it. And then suddenly it's 3. And you can understand why Pallante, because, okay, is he going to be paid as a starter, as a reliever? He's been this, he's going to be this. Totally get whether there might be a disagreement of value there. With Nootbaar and Donovan, it was almost like, well, they've had some injuries. Is Donovan, what's his position? They kind of held that against him is the way it sounded there, which is frustrating. You can send such a positive message that I think fan base would respond favorably to, because nobody liked that they held Donovan's feet to the fire over that small sum. You can put that water under the bridge so very easily by approaching it differently. And as Rock said, setting a really favorable tone for the new front office.
Joseph G. Left field is one hole that Donny covered that the logjam of middle infielders can't. And now we have Herrera in left field. That's a sign for me too. Well, I think what they want, they believe that Donovan is a Gold Glove quality second baseman, and that they think that their middle infield, and you win with quality up the middle. They believe that right now, of the guys on their major league team, that the group that they have up the middle, Pages, Wynn, Donovan, Scott, is the best defensive group that they can put out there. And I agree with that 100%. So with that being the case, you play a Burleson in left. Who else would you play right now on this roster? I'm not talking about Weatherholt.
Sure. Who
would the other second baseman be that you would plug in rather than Brendan Donovan?
Yeah, I mean, if you traded him, I guess Sajaci's playing there a bunch like right now. But Sajaci's future, I think he should be on this team next year. And they hesitated to put him in a bench role this year because he wanted to get his development. But now he's another year older, another year more experienced. And if he's in that utility role where he's only playing 3 times a week, but your bench is better for it, I can live with that for 2026. Like, I'm okay with maybe approaching it a little bit differently. And look, he's going to be on the team the rest of the way. I don't see him getting sent back down necessarily, even if Gorman returns, even when Nootbaar returns. It's probably other guys. Like, I just feel like it's to a point where, all right, we've seen him get the experience in Memphis. Now he needs to be with the big club and be part of whatever this looks like to further his career.
And sadly, from my perspective, when we talk about a salary cap and a salary floor, that's one of the issues, is that you have pretty much every year rookie benches. And I know that the Cardinals, they had Matt Carpenter, and they had the year where they had Albert as a DH. But I think one of the real problems that baseball has now is that middle class, that professional guy that could be a pinch hitter, that can come off the bench, that can be an influence in the clubhouse. That guy's gone. He's priced out of Major League Baseball. The Cardinals, more years than not now, have a rookie or a second year bench. That's the way it works.
Or a guy like, it's like a Pozo who you kind of brought in, and it was, you didn't even know he was going to be as good as he was, making the minimum. They should sign that guy for $5 million in the offseason. But you could also say, well, they've tried that. And then like the Ty Wigginton didn't work out. Like, you can think about the times that it didn't work out. We make a big deal out of that. But what was really ventured? It was a few $1 million and it didn't work out. But I think if you identify the right one, what a world of difference that can make in your clubhouse.
The guy that just retired, Nick Ahmed, had signed with the Giants as a he signed a minor league contract with the Giants, made their team. A day later, the Cardinals go out and sign Brandon Crawford.
They saw that market moving, and they saw Mason Wynn's back, and they're like, we got to get somebody.
And they should have signed Ahmed.
Right.
It would have been cheaper, and it would have been more effective.
More of a fit as well. Yeah, I don't believe Mozeliak's front office has done a very good job of identification in that regard. With relievers, they've done a better job. I know we look at the ones that don't pan out, like they spent up because they felt they had to for Brett Cecil. Didn't really work out. You could look at Andrew Miller, and that was like, they didn't get the bang for the buck. They do really well in that Phil Maton category where you're not spending a ton.
Villanueva,
they've done a number of those. I mean, Bud Norris was solid for a while. They've done a number of those deals. But when it comes to position players, it just hasn't seemingly been the same. And like,
you got a month out of Corey Dickerson.
Yeah, but you could tell, like with the Brandon Crawford one, you could tell how just bad of a fit that was. First of all, a guy that like lived in Arizona would have taken any other job but to come for the Cardinals because he had to go to Florida for spring training. And it's like, but we're desperate enough that we got to pay him $2 million just to get him to, not wait around for an Arizona spring opportunity. That came because they didn't judge the market. They wait, right? They wait for the market instead of setting it. But in that spring, as Mason Wynn's back is kind of acting up and you go, hey, we might need some coverage here. They waited it out until they just had to get somebody in overpay to do it.
Yeah, and that's just been consistent for them. But back to the veterans on the bench, and that was a bad choice. Wigginton was a bad choice. Dickerson was a bad choice. But I go back, man, that 2000 team that the Cardinals had with Eric Davis, Sean Dunston, Thomas Howard, and they bring in Will Clark at the end. They don't win their division without that group and get to the NLCS without that group. And those were professional guys at the time the Cardinals had them. They were not outrageously expensive. And I still think that there is a spot to have those sort of professional players on your bench that can really help you win. And you can find those guys now. I think it's when we talk about inefficiency in baseball, I think that's a big one. I think that's where teams could really do some damage if they have a quality bench.
And it feels akin in terms of like what you're spending to when we talk about beefing up the infrastructure in the minors. Like you're hiring some coaches to, 9-digit not 9-digit. Is that right? Yeah, 6-digit salaries, right? 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. Like you're spending, and you can get multiple of those guys for your $1 million. Whereas, we saw it just ignored for so long. And the benefit, and I think teams around the league have found the benefit is significant. And so the Cardinals have kind of jumped back into that, and we saw what they did in the offseason. I kind of view it that way, where it's not going to cost you a bunch. It's not like signing, a multi-year contract or even like a Lance Lynn caliber contract where they got value from him, but they're paying him like $12 million for a season. It doesn't cost that to identify the right bench guy, bring him in for a year, and get return on your investment from him. It's a, as you said, potential market inefficiency that you can exploit.
Yep. Wesley, 4 position players on the bench, 8 relievers, usually treat 6 of them as disposable arms. No wonder you don't see professional bench players anymore. But you can see they're out there, and that's, as you say, disposable players. That's the way it works with bullpens now. There's no doubt about it. But would you be better off with 4 veterans? And by the way, this year the Cardinal bench is a little bit different because they're rotating so many guys in there on a regular basis. And for me, I don't know what Pozo is going to be, but I think there's a lot of guys here that have the chance to be pretty good players. But usually when you have a bench of rookies, they are not adept at being pinch hitters.
No, that's not the role that they've ever played. And so they're coming up and trying to figure that out on the fly, while also just figuring out the major leagues on the fly with something they haven't done before. So that's a tough ask. And we talk about it. We acknowledge that it's real, but then when we look and say, oh my gosh, the bench stinks, they're not producing, we kind of wonder why that is. If we would use both halves of our brain, we would understand, well, that's not really the role that is conducive for those players more often than not.
Nominal in the Lou. I saw Jordan Hicks was blown up last night. I liked him. Should Cards take a look at him again? No, been there, done that. That's fine. That's that's the essence of the disposable player. So you bring a guy up, throw him 102, 103 miles an hour for 5.5 years, and then when you don't need him anymore, you've got another 100-mile-an-hour guy in Ryan Helsley ready to take over. You get rid of the previous guy, and that same thing's going to happen to Ryan Helsley. And whether it's, I don't know who it'll be, Tink Hens, Graceffo, somebody else will come up and throw.
Matt Swanson?
Yeah, Swanson.
I did not know he had triple digits in the bag, but he hit 100 last night. Yeah. That was like, okay, cool.
And somebody will come up and spend 4 years in the bullpen throwing 100 for the Cardinals, and then they'll say, nope, we're good. We'll move on to the next guy. It's just the way it works. But Jordan Hicks has already been disposed of.
And we always talk about relievers being disposable, but we haven't seen this front office have a willingness to like move guys when they're at the height of their value either. Right. That's another weird kind of, it's off kilter a little bit with the value proposition.
Yep. Honorable mention to Jeremy Hazelbaker, name from the past. Hazelraker. Remember him? One of my favorite bench guys. He was good.
Oh, I remember. I certainly do.
Remember when the Cardinals bench player just used to have, used to be the personification of devil magic. Bohart, Scott Spezio.
You could go to guys like Daniel Descalso, who became players that played more.
I was going to go even shorter term. Joe Mather.
Yep.
Remember that little run there by the 6'8" guy?
Yeah.
By the way, a little update here on the poll, which was again, would you trade Donny if the return was 2 top prospects? Despite the fact that a lot of the chatters have been anti-trading, apparently the majority of the watchers,
The
are
silent
pro.
majority.
53 yes, 47%
Wow.
no. The yes trade has finally taken over to the listeners.
Here's
So
the good
my
news.
question.
Here's
when,
the good-
when does this end? Okay,
Yeah.
so when do you? If you're going to be trading your all, kind of like the Pirates do, that right? They traded
Sure.
Garrett Cole, they traded Andrew McCutchen, they traded Joe Musgrove.
Next year they traded Paul Skeens. Yeah.
At what point does it end where you don't desire to trade your all-star player
right?
for young players that haven't played in the majors yet? When does that circle end?
I think it ends when you have Albert Pujols anchoring your team, and so people are going to be done whining that they don't have a superstar. And I say whining, it's not that it's not a valid point that y'all bring up. They need a star. I totally get it. They got to figure out a way to develop it. I just think this idea has become so pervasive that we're going to trade one of our really, really good proven players to get that superstar, and it's going to work out. I think that's a very common idea. And as we've described, it doesn't always play out that way when you're trading for prospects.
The chat that made me update everybody here, but I do have to read it now because the guy's name is Jack Chester Sunburn, which is just a fantastic chatter name. Credit to you, Jack Chester Sunburn. Fantastic name. And he's, why would you entertain trading your lone all-star? No replacement in this team for what Brendan Donovan brings. Hard to argue with that.
And look, I don't need to replace what he brings. You could say, well, Weatherholt can do it next year. I don't want to replace what Donovan brings. I want to add to it. I want to add somebody else who brings a lot to the table.
Aren't you worried about having too many good players?
That's crazy. You know who doesn't ever worry about that? The Dodgers.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they don't.
Yeah,
you don't ever think,
Yeah.
we got too many good ones. You know, and I get it. Right now, you have that list of 10, 11 guys when all healthy that you say you have a log jam and it's a glut. That's a little bit of a different conversation. You have to fit guys where they have their roles, but we're talking about two good players that would both be in the lineup. We're not saying we have to find playing time for Weatherholt and Donovan. Guess who's not getting playing time? Somebody else is not getting playing time. If Gorman's still here, he's on your bench. He's going to have to learn to be that professional hitter. It's not going to be Donovan or Weatherholt to get benched. They're both part of your lineup because they're your two best players next year if things break right.
I feel like SEL Sports Central should have a headline tomorrow with the byline by Brenden Schaeffer of logjam versus glut, the Cardinals' real second base and left field situation forward.
I mean, it's a great. My head would spin so much trying to write it because, in fairness,
article.
it's hard to articulate. I understand why fans feel a certain way because it's hard to. But once you look at all the context, I think it does become a lot simpler.
Here's a Cardinal executive's take as of this past weekend on J.J. Weatherholt. I think he'll have a lot of value on the infield. So that's when I asked the question about whether or not they would move him to the outfield and let him become the next Corbin Carroll. He said, I think he'll have a lot of value on the infield, so that's been our focus. He's still primarily a shortstop right now, but we are getting him meaningful second base and third base exposure for maximum versatility.
Yep, because one of those spots is probably where he lands. Assuming something crazy doesn't happen and you move Mason Wynn, you're talking about Weatherholt likely landing at one of those spots. Yep. And to me, there is no reason that Brendan Donovan cannot exist at the other. Yes, you probably have to end up moving on from somebody like, definitely Arenado. I think that's becoming a standing assumption at this point that he's not on next year's team. That's at least the way I'm operating. And then Gorman, you have to figure out, could he exist in a world where he comes off the bench? I would say that to this point in his major league career, we haven't seen that necessarily from him. That would be a role in which he would thrive just from like a mentality standpoint. But, there are crazier things because we do get guys that have injuries. And so if you feel that you can't trade Gorman and get value for him, it could be a process where you say, he is a guy that's going to probably not get a lot of playing time, but the role he is going to serve in the big leagues is as a lefty that comes off of our bench. Right. And we're going to be more willing to utilize that than they've been this year. This has been like the runway year where we haven't seen pinch hitters very often, largely because they don't have any on the bench that you really feel like are better than the guys you started that day. But that could be something that changes next year. We know that Tampa really utilized platoons a ton and that Chaim Bloom is going to be taking over. So there's another connection that you could argue. Look, Gorman, is he ever going to be able to consistently hit lefties? I don't know. But could they end up using him next year as more of a platoonery type of guy? Yeah, possible.
Worth considering, no doubt about it.
Did I make up a word there? I don't think platoonery is real.
You didn't want to admit that you used the word platoon.
No, I was trying to
Weatherholt, so you just added a couple words to soften the blow.
It wouldn't be with JJ. No, because he's a lefty. It wouldn't be with him. You'd
That's
have
true.
to mark through like, okay, who's the righty that isn't going to play as much to get that playing time? And is it Jordan Walker with positional? Somebody else goes to right. I don't really know. They'll tell us because someone's got to be traded. Probably two someones.
Yeah. Hey, kids, nothing beats relaxing on a hot summer day, and it is a hot summer day. Nothing beats relaxing and watching baseball. And the simplest way to get in on the action is to download the Pick 6 app from DraftKings and get busy with picking over-unders. It's crazy simple. Just pick more or less on the stats for two or more of your favorite players, and boom, you're in the mix for big cash prizes. We were mentioning Corbin Carroll earlier, and I'm taking a look at CC. 1.5 total bases. I'm going to go over 1.5 total bases for Corbin Carroll against Casey Mize of the Tigers today. So that's going to be part of my little exacta. And then the other part that I'm going to do is I think I'm going to take a look at some strikeouts. And there's a lot of pitchers that are going with big strikeout numbers today. And should we go? I'm not going to take the bait on Sonny Gray pitching in St. Louis. I know it's there. I'm going to go with
Alcantara.
Oh, that's a fun one. But no, I'm going to go with Seth Lugo celebrating the new contract with more than 4.5 strikeouts for the Royals with cheese against Atlanta. So I'm going with Carroll and I'm going with Lugo. And that is my DraftKings Pick 6. And it's available right here in Missouri. Don't miss out on the fun and don't settle for a smaller payout. Switch to Pick 6, and right now you can get $25 in bonus picks with your first deposit of just $5. How about that? Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app right now. Use that promo code that's on your screen, STL Sports. That's promo code STL Sports for new customers to get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings, where the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
All right, B-Schaeff, what did you think of Bryce Harper telling the commissioner of baseball to quote, get the blank out of our clubhouse if you're going to talk about a salary cap? Is that very, very respectful on the part of Bryce Harper, who appears to be a very respectful guy?
No, I think he felt pretty passionately about the topic. And according to the story from Jeff Passan, the word salary cap wasn't used by Rob Manfred during these meetings where he was meeting with all 30 clubhouses over the course of the year. And it's the one with Philly that seemed to definitely go off the rails. It's funny, too, that a lot of this has come out from Nick Castellanos being like, yeah, here's what happened. It was kind of crazy. Like, I like that he's just so candid to talk about it. So
and he broke it up, by the way. He got between the commissioner
he said, apparently Castellanos said, I've got some additional questions. Like, I still want to ask some questions. And so that was something that sort of eased the tension a bit. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be a thing, guys. It's going to be a thing that if ownership's side of things is going to be dead set on that salary cap, I can tell you who's dead set on not having one, and it's the players. The agents are obviously, driving a lot of the buses on this in the way that they're interacting and letting their players know what their belief is on the implication of what a salary cap would bring.
And what a salary cap would bring would be 50% of the revenue to players. Right now, they're getting 43%. 10% of baseball players are making 72% of the money. So unless you're in that 10%, you're better off with a salary cap and a salary floor. This is not a real union. It's the Major League Baseball Players Association that doesn't provide equality for all. And one of the reasons we're talking about the middle class being squeezed out of baseball is because you do have these Bryce Harpers and Manny Machados of the world, and obviously Ohtani making his money and Soto making his money. You've got this group of players that are making great salaries. Nobody's begrudging them that, but it's preventing other players and other franchises from being forced to make more. Okay, so if you're the Rays or the Marlins or the Pirates or the Royals, you don't want a salary floor because you're Bob Nutting, you're the owner of the Pirates, you're able to pocket that revenue sharing money. It'd be different if you had to reach a salary floor so that every team had to get to a certain amount of money so that ownership spent 50% of their revenue on player salaries. That's what's happening in the NFL, and that's why all the quarterbacks are making between $45 and $55 million a year. It's happening in the NBA, and that's why you're hearing about people that you've never heard of making 30 or 35 million a year. It's happening in the National Hockey League where they get 50% of the revenue. And there's Hampus Lindholm making like 11 or 12 million dollars a year. It works for every other sport, and it does lift the tide of the lesser paid players, but baseball is only concerned about that top 10%.
Yeah, and you've only got a couple of teams that are willing to spend to the degree that these big money contracts are going out. So I could see the point of like parity and competitive balance is hindered because of the lack of willingness. But I also think that like the owners that aren't spending on these big contracts still aren't going to, even with a salary cap. Like I don't,
they will with a salary floor. They'll have to.
Well, they'll have to spend to the floor, but I don't like the big time contracts. I think you're still going to be talking about the same few teams that have a willingness to spend to that point. I can understand the reasoning why you would not trust ownership side to implement it in a fair way, but you also would say like the floor is the floor. I would think the players would say we'd love to have a salary floor, but worry about the implications of a cap and exactly where it would be capped and those sorts of things. So like to me, the salary floor in if everybody was operating the way that they ought to, if they care to own a baseball team, would be that you're spending to whatever that floor would look like anyway, so because you're not cheaping out. Yeah. So like I put the onus on those owners that aren't doing it already, like the Pirates and the Marlins and whatever the examples are. The fact that they're not spending to that point already is embarrassing. It's not the problem of the owners that are deciding, hey, we want to put the best product on the field, so we're going to be willing to spend for the best talent. I just don't get on board with those owners crying poor when they either A, have the money to be doing what the other, ownerships are doing, or they should sell their team.
But that's why I think they should be forced to pay. And then you can either pay or sell your team, because I can guarantee you what's going to happen. That 43% that the players are getting right now of revenue, that's going to go down, down, down. If there's no reason for an owner to spend more than he has to, he's not going to. There's going to be, obviously the Dodgers are going to, the Yankees are proponents of a salary cap and a salary floor. They don't mind paying players, but they see that things have gotten out of hand in LA. And so from my perspective, I just think that you would be able to build a better product with a floor. I think the Cardinals, if they had a salary floor, and I don't know where it'd work right now, but that middle class that we talked about, that bench that you used to have, that veteran bench, yeah, I think that could come back into being if you had a salary floor.
Oh, I'm in favor of a floor. I have seen the way that the negotiating tactics have happened, and I would be wary, just like the players, of a cap. I understand the impetus behind it. I would be wary of it. I really would.
So, and I'm of the opinion that if they don't get a cap, and by the way, Bryce Harper said we have no problem with giving up a 162 game season. He's willing to shut it down.
They feel strongly about it. Yeah. No, I mean, they feel strongly about it, clearly.
Which they would, then you'd have to bring steroids back to bring baseball back again, which kind of winds up being.
We already tried that. We already did that once, and people got mad. Yeah, it worked, but then people got mad after it.
They did because they were illegal. But I just think that if owners don't have guardrails, all they care about is their money. And I think that if there's no salary floor, then I think those have-nots will spend even less. I think that because that number, heck, 20 years ago was at 57% that owners were spending of revenue on players. Now it's at 43. I think it'll go down even more.
Yeah, there's uncertainty in there, and I don't have any way to like legitimately dispute what you're saying, because it's possible that you're right. And look, the TV part of all of this is significant too, because that's where a lot of the revenues come from. And that's a model that is shrinking / dying in the way that we've known it to be over the decades, the last decade or so in which these contracts have been doled out. Like the pool is shrinking when it comes to the types of teams that can dole that out or are willing to. Again, could ownership groups be doing what the Dodgers are doing? maybe with some creative accounting. Their accountants must be like the best in the business because they're deferring the money, they're figuring things out. I would search to close those loopholes, honestly, before I worry about a salary cap, because that's the only reason they're really able to continue doing what they're doing.
Eric Cleveland with a good one here. A floor in getting players to FA quicker, allow the player more of a chance for a second contract. And that's on two fronts, because if you draft a player, you're a major league team, okay? You draft a player out of college when he's 21 years old, okay? And you have him in the minors for 6 years. He doesn't become a minor league free agent until 6 years pass. So you could have him down there for 5.5 years. So you've got him from age 21 to age 26. Right now in baseball, you also have him for 6 years in the majors until he becomes a free agent. So you could have a player and never have the chance of losing him as a free agent from the time he's 21 to the time he's 32, basically.
Yep.
And cut it back to 4 years for minor league free agency. I mean, maybe even 3. If you have,
is that applicable to if you're on the 40-man roster? Can you still be optioned after that 6 years? Because I think it's 5 years before you're on the 40-man. So really, they could probably toy with you even some additional years before they're out of options. Yeah. So it can, to your point, it can last a long time.
It can. So maybe cut free agency back to 4 years in both the minors and the majors to give players a quicker path to free agency. I think that's a really good idea.
I think that would be the only way you ever get the players on board with the idea of a salary cap. And even then, I don't know if they would be, but it's the only sport where it's like that, where you're talking about a decade that you could conceivably be tied up before you get a chance to choose your own path.
Rob Branscombe, and let's get back to that. How is the NFL able to perform with the cap and blow MLB out of the water in almost every rating and revenue category? Well, it's clearly a more attractive product, and I think they're just smarter. And there is, for better or worse, there's a level of trust between ownership and players in the NFL. But it is incredible to look at the highest paid athletes in sports now are Soto and Ohtani, and they're both over 70 million AAV. But then it's a group of like 12 NFL quarterbacks and a couple of NBA players before you get to, I think there's like 20 players total in between the two baseball players, NFL, NBA guys, and then like number 21 or 22 is the next MLB player.
Yeah, but I also think like the point that we were touching on of like, why is it functionally different? Baseball's the only sport where you have the minor leagues in the way that they do. Like hockey has the AHL, and the NFL doesn't really have anything at all. And the G League exists for basketball, but like you can't, I don't think it's right to compare them as apples and apples when you have the ability that teams have to control players through such a significant portion of what their prime athletic years are.
Yeah. And there's a couple of guys here in St. Louis, and it's really sad that they have major league talent and they've been up in the majors, but it's that situation where an organization has had them for like 12 years.
Yeah. And so like, if you want to talk about, comparing, well, every other league has a salary cap, you would have to fundamentally change, I think, that whole structure to where players can pass through it significantly quicker, because that's what happens in the other sports as well. There's no minor leagues and they're quicker to free agency and being able to really cash in on their talent. That the combination of that for baseball is exactly why it doesn't work to say, well, these other sports do it. No, that's not relevant when you consider the other outlying factors, in my opinion.
All right. So we're 2 days away from the trade deadline. Who is your lock, stock, and barrel Cardinal to be gone at the deadline?
Phil Maton, I think, will be gone.
Phil Maton, sorry.
And I believe Ryan Helsley will be traded.
I think Helsley's going to. I think he's my lock.
Yeah,
to be gone. How about you, Matthew? You got one of the guys, whether it's Matone or Helsley or Matsy or.
It's got to be those two, especially now with the Class A stuff happening. You got to think that now. I mean,
that's a guy that could have been dealt.
Yeah, Class A could have been dealt, and so now Helsley's arguably the number one closer available, and Maton becomes. Yeah. He gets bumped up one little slot too as maybe one of the most valuable relief pitchers, potential closers as well. And I think for me, I still think just JoJo is a dark horse. They're going to have to get a better prospect than I would expect to make the deal because he's so cheap and because he's got a year of control. But again, because he's so cheap and because he's got a year of control, there's also more teams that are probably going to be making calls about JoJo Romero. Mm-hmm. Like right now, one of my dark horse picks is the Rays are trying to make a little bit of a run for at the AL East, and they need relief pitching, and seems like a perfect guy for them to make a move for because he doesn't cost anything and because he doesn't have control. And you'd think they got a pretty good farm system down there in Tampa Bay. Everyone tells me they always do. So that's kind of my dark horse. But I think Maton and Helsley is kind of my guarantee.
JoJo won't be dealt. He's one that I think should be considered if they're getting calls on him, which I believe they probably are. Mm-hmm. Should be dealt, won't be. Donovan is a player that should not be dealt and won't be. We spent a lot of time talking about the Donovan stuff today. It's not happening. He's not going to be traded. So
no, he's not. By the way, if you're going to trade Steven Matz, can you just make sure, Cardinals, and I know you're watching, we appreciate you tuning into the podcast here, but make sure that you send him to a place that has good bicycle paths. He's my guy. We always talk about it. Whenever we're together, we talk about cycling. So make sure that you send him Minneapolis. I don't know if Minneapolis has interest in Steven Matz, but don't send him to New York.
Yes, tough.
He's from there.
Tough to bike there, though, probably.
Yeah. So San Francisco has good bicycling. Seattle has good bicycling. I guess New York is okay. New York does have, what's really cool? If you ever get a chance to do this, every year they shut down the streets of New York on a Sunday morning for the 5-borough ride. And I've ridden it before. It's a 40-mile ride. It's great. Okay, so New York, sending him back home would be fine too. Just make sure you take care of my guy. That's all I'm asking.
I think that would be a fair ask, reasonable request.
Yeah, good bicycling spot. We also have to get to this one. Hold on. Let's see. This is Chris Bassett's left foot. For Cardinals management, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Okay. Yeah. Do that. You know what else you can do? Also subscribe to our newsletter. Mo and Heim and John Vooch and gang over there. And also subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the video and follow us on social. We're at STL Sports Central. All of that stuff. Use your burner accounts to follow us on all the socials.
We like getting the numbers up. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So, thank you, Cardinals. We appreciate it. B-Schaeff, great job as always, man.
Appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. I mean, this is about as fun of a week as you can have for discussion that goes a little more long range, but also we're going to find out some of what happens here in a couple of days.
Yeah, and we're setting records, apparently. I get emails that we're setting records, so we appreciate you being a part of the Randy Karraker Show with B-Schaeff, and great job as always by our man that does it all, the Matthew Rocchio Wilson here, getting us on the air here on STL Sports Central. Brought to you by DraftKings, where the crown is yours. And don't forget, it's National Wing Day. Head on over to the Fenton Bar and Grill today. And if you can't make it on National Wing Day, next time you're up for wings, next time you're up for a great meal, it's the Fenton Bar and Grill, the Dive with a Vibe in Fenton on Rudder Road.
Of course it is. And I'll mention one more thing before we get out of here. On Thursday morning, trade deadline day, 8 a.m., Joe Roderick and myself will be live with a primer for the day with trade deadline talk. So it'll be a show kind of like this one ended up being, but we'll be talking more about the trade stuff in the nitty-gritty. 8 a.m. Thursday morning. Mark your calendars and be here at STL Sports Central.
I love this. Okay, one more quick story because of what they're doing. And Matthew will totally appreciate this because he was into it. So one time when I was at the Big 550 KTRS, by the way, you can hear me Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning with McGraw-Millhaven on the Big 550 KTRS. But we used to do the draft on the Big 550. And our man, the H-man, Howard Balzer, one time wanted to do 24 consecutive hours of draft coverage.
It sounds like H. Yep, yeah. That sounds right.
He wanted to go from midnight to midnight and do 24 hours of draft coverage. I was against it.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah. But H could have done it by himself. Would have been cool, but we wound up not doing it. So anyway, we hope you have a terrific Taco Tuesday on National Wing Day. And we will see you tomorrow morning at 10:04. Until then, for all of us here at STL Sports Central, enjoy Cardinal pregame and postgame, STL Sports Central 365, and we will see you tomorrow morning at 10.